Hey everyone, it is Tax Talk Tuesday once again, and today I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about something that, quite frankly, we've already spent a lot of time talking about. But that is some happenings, maybe some updates surrounding the federal estate tax, because quite frankly, we're getting that question more and more in new consults and meetings with ongoing clients. What on earth is happening with the federal estate tax? So I thought it would be helpful just to kind of recap where we are. Won't spend much time on that because there are probably 3 or 4 videos on the channel already talking about where we're at. And we've already introduced the proposal, at least one proposal, um, to change the federal estate tax. We started talking about that around the time of the election. But there have been some, I don't want to say changes. I think happenings is the right word. Recently that I wanted to touch on that may give an indication of where this is going. But first, where we are. Currently, each individual gets what's considered an estate tax exemption amount. It's actually an estate and gift tax exemption amount of $11.7 million per individual. Oversimplified, that means that every individual can transfer either during their life or at their passing $11.7 million to another individual without paying any federal estate tax on that amount. Now, there's a lot of other moving pieces there. There's marital deductions, charitable deductions, but currently we're at $11.7 million that you can transfer estate tax free. If things stay like they are, that number should go up again next year because it is indexed for inflation. But that law, or current law, says that that amount is going to sunset on December 31st of 2025. And when that happens, if things stay exactly like they are, that exemption amount is expected to drop back down to $5 million, indexed for inflation, which should land us somewhere in the $6.5 million range in terms of an exemption amount. We have talked about it before, though. Around the time of the election, the Biden tax proposal, some members of Congress have proposed doing this. But dropping that current $11.7 million exemption amount, which is pretty high, all the way down to $3 or $3.5 million. That is a significant change. That captures a whole lot more people because we're not just talking about financial assets. We're talking about family businesses. We're talking about family land, farms, investment properties, things that don't necessarily it's not necessarily cash sitting there to just pay off a tax. So different members of Congress are working on, potential exemptions, changes, especially dealing with family farms, probably a lot more to come there. But at least some members of Congress in the original Biden proposal proposed dropping the estate tax exemption amount all the way down to $3 or $3.5 million. Recently, though, because Congress is naturally divided, there has been legislation introduced, I believe, by John Thune, a Republican, to repeal the current estate tax altogether and make some changes to the gift tax. I'm not going to talk about the gift tax or capital gains or anything like that right now. But there has been that legislation introduced to repeal the estate tax. I think with, primarily and just an overall Democrat-controlled Congress and presidency, it is very unlikely that we see any form of a repeal of the estate tax in the near future. But what it does show is it shows that they're still fighting over kind of the right way to go here. But I think most notably, and the main purpose for this update today is just to point out that back on April 28th, when President Biden put out the American Families Plan, there was no mention. It was completely omitted. There were no changes to the federal estate tax. Now, is that just kind of a punt? Maybe. I think, again, there's the Republican argument, there's the Democrat argument, there's a lot of people somewhere in between. And right now, the American Families Plan, the proposal that's out there, does not change the current federal estate tax. I think what it also tells us is just that the Biden administration has other priorities They seem to be a lot more focused on changes to the capital gains rates, the taxes on capital gains, and really perhaps just making some changes to the gift tax side of things and leaving the estate tax alone. All that said, it's hard to say whether changes are coming this year or not, but this is probably the first step back that we've seen where there just wasn't any mention of a potential estate tax change in a recent proposal. So what we're going to do is continue to meet with clients. We're going to continue to keep our eye out. I still think that there are plenty of proactive things that you should at least be thinking about if you are impacted by the potential drop in the estate tax exemption amount. And just in the back of your mind, even if you're not impacted, but your estate's growing, or if you are impacted regardless, when this current law sunsets in 2025, if they make no changes at all, it's just good to start thinking about maybe or meeting with advisors to talk about some potential strategies so that there's a game plan in place instead of it being fourth quarter of this year, changes do come, or changes are proposed, and all of a sudden we've got a really short compressed timeline to put something in place. So we're going to continue to keep our eye out. We will update you here. We will update our clients by email list, and just overall trying to get the information out there. But we're continuing to watch this. Right now, I think the biggest takeaway for this video, no current proposed change in the American Families Plan to the estate tax, which may be an indication that that's a lower priority at this point. Thanks again, as always, for checking out this channel. If you have any questions or if there's something that you would like to discuss, feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to talk about these things, which is kind of scary that we're happy to talk about taxes. But that's neither here